The radical. Fundamental principles of freedom, rational self-interest, and individual rights. This is the Yaron Brook Show.
All right, everybody, welcome to Yaron Brook Show on this Monday, October 6th. Hopefully you are all having a fantastic beginning of your week. I am slowly getting better, as you can probably tell. Every day is just a little bit better. I'm not over this thing, which is ridiculous. It's been over a week now. I feel like I should be over it, but I'm not. So we'll take it one day at a time, and we'll do this slowly. Shows will be a little shorter as my energy is a little bit more constrained. But I am here and intend to be here all week, at least until Friday. So to keep you up with all the news that is happening in the world. All right, so let's jump in with our news, and I hope this thing just goes away. I keep expecting to wake up in the morning and it's gone, and nope. It's still there. All right, let's start. This is a story that we've been hearing rumors about for, I think, over a month now. But this morning, it was announced officially that Barry Weiss's Free Press has been bought. By Paramount Skydance for $150 million. $150 million. And that Barry Weiss will become basically the head of news at CBS. CBS is owned by Paramount Skydance, and she's now going to become editor-in-chief of CBS News. So this is huge, and this is a massive indication for Barry Weiss and everything she has done. If you remember, Barry was a journalist. She had worked in a number of different publications, some Israeli publications, Jewish publications. She spent some time in the Wall Street Journal as an op-ed and book review editor. She left the Wall Street Journal in 2017. She went to work at the New York Times as an op-ed staff writer and editor at the New York Times. And in 2020, she resigned, she resigned from New York Times. It was a pretty famous resignation because she published a resignation letter. It made all the news. I remember covering it here on the Yaron Brook Show at the time. She basically accused the New York Times of an illiberal environment. She claimed that she was subject to constant bullying by her colleagues, primarily because of her pro-Israel views and because she just wouldn't go along with kind of the woke, leftist, progressive agenda that had come to dominate the New York Times. And in her resignation, she called for a new era in media and the formation of new media entities. And she started up a new a newsletter, Common Sense, I think it was called, right off the bat, which gained a lot of attention. It turned out to be incredibly well written, and she attempted to kind of capture what she believed was kind of a centrist position, a common sense position, a position that was removed from the kind of dominance of the woke far left agenda of the New York Times and the mainstream media more broadly. Ultimately, she turned the newsletter into the Free Press, which meant she hired reporters, she hired staff, a bunch of columnists to write columns for her. She was joined in this endeavor by her wife, Nellie Bowles, who wrote a humorous TGIF column kind of on every Friday, and by her own sister, Susie Weiss, who was a co-founder, who was also a co-founder of the Free Press, and turned it into an alternative media company, a successful one. This had grown. She had grown this to about 175,000 paying subscribers. According to Wall Street Journal, the business generates about $20 million of annual revenue. So she got 7.5 times revenue. I mean, that's rich, it seems. 150 million seems like a lot of money for 20 million of revenue. I don't know what her bottom line is like, what her earnings are like, what her profitability, in other words, is like. It's probably a very profitable business. Reporters and columnists are not that expensive. Running a network, running an online website is not that expensive. There's no printing costs. There's no... Anyway, it seems like it's quite a profitable business. Anyway, she did very, very well. Basically, within 5 years, she took a non-existent business and she started something that, went to 20 million in revenue. That is huge. That is huge. That is real entrepreneurship. Congratulations to Barry Weiss. I mean, this is fantastic. It's good for her. It just shows that all those people who sit there and whine and complain and bitch about mainstream media and all these other things, here's somebody who did something about it and has become a gazillionaire as a consequence. She's very, very rich now, and she has gone back into the mainstream media, now in a position of power. Now, we'll get to that in a minute. We'll get to what's happening at CBS in a minute. But this is just a inspiring story of successful entrepreneurship and should be taken as such. And it also means that, there are a lot of other alternative media companies out there that probably have worth a lot more money than they expected, given these valuations, whether it's the Dispatch or, there's a bunch of others that have an independent voice and have picked up lots of subscribers. And this has kind of given some kind of valuation to a lot of those businesses. So, again, congratulations, Barry. Yes, I mean, she's done a lot over the last 5 years. I mean, she was one of the founders of University of Austin. She's still on the board at the University of Austin. She has really become a voice, a pro-Israel, a major pro-Israel voice out there. She has an interview show, a kind of a podcast that is incredibly successful, and of course the publication itself has just become it's just a really good publication. Now it'll be owned by Paramount, and hopefully will be left free to continue its path of success. Now, all of this is made possible ultimately by the fact that the media world in which we live is going through some big changes. That is, we're seeing a lot of money come in and start buying media assets. Paramount Skydance is a result of Larry Ellison's son, David Ellison. That's Larry Ellison, who is the CEO of Oracle, and has been, I don't know if consistently, but has been a big supporter of Donald Trump's. Larry Ellison is his son. Sorry, David Ellison is the son. David Ellison has kind of put together the financing and backed by his dad, and basically bought Paramount and is now the chief executive. Larry Ellison is not a leftist. Larry Ellison himself is somebody who you would have considered probably 20 years ago more of a libertarian, highly, significantly influenced by Ayn Rand, a big Atlas Shrugged fan. but never very active in politics or in the think tank world or in supporting really any kind of causes. Really sat on his money and on the sidelines. Hard to tell what his politics are today. Again, a supporter of Donald Trump's, but hard to tell what kind of a conservative / free market is. There still free market there? I don't know. I don't know what his positioning is. But here you have David Ellison, his son, who is clearly seems to be on the right, taking over Paramount. Part of that is taking over CBS and dedicated now to restructuring CBS and shifting it away from the conventional left-wing bias of the mainstream media and hopefully making it a more objective news outlet. And I think part of Barry Weiss's mission is to bring that objectivity. That is her goal. That is a goal. That is a goal of Barry's, is to bring kind of objectivity. The goal of Weiss is very much to bring to bring a sense of reality to media, to do the opposite of what she saw the direction the New York Times the New York Times had in the 20 teens. Not that the New York Times was ever anything but heavily leftist biased. I mean, Ayn Rand talked about this in the 1960s and how biased the New York Times was way back then, and she identified it as a leftist. And it's only gotten worse, right? Only gotten worse since the 1960s. And going back to the 1930s when it was running post-Stalin stories. So New York Times has always been leftist biased. Anyway, the idea now is that Barry will come into CBS and clean house and make it more objective. In terms of Barry's own politics, it's really hard to tell. She's sympathetic to much of Trump's agenda, but she's certainly not a conservative. Obviously, she is. She's gay. She's married to another woman. They've got 2 adopted children. She has people writing for her both left and right. I have noticed over the last, I'd say, couple of years, certainly over the last year since Trump got elected, the free press becoming more and more kind of conventional right wing that is tilting more towards the Trump agenda, which I have noticed with sadness, as have many other people, I think, who supported Barry through much of her career. But I think on certain issues, obviously, she still sticks to her kind of, I think, set of beliefs, which are more, I think on economics, she's a center left, and on cultural issues or some cultural issues, she's center right. Again, but she's definitely anchored in the center. Way too, I think, positive about Trump, but she brings a whole bunch of different voices to the free press, and that is good for. This is part of a much broader shift in our media landscape, a shift to the right that we are seeing, of course, with Twitter taken over by Elon Musk as the beginning of that. One of the things that could happen here is that Ellison is talking about buying. Who are they buying? Discover, which would give them control over CNN. So you could see CNN coming under the Larry Ellison Paramount umbrella, which would shift CNN and might make Barry Weiss very influential at CNN. ABC and NBC are kind of stuck where they are. But I think what you're going to see, and the politics here are pretty straightforward. You're going to see a shift to the right, a shift towards kind of more of a Trumpist agenda. I think the people around Trump are ambitious. Many of them have money, and they will be deploying that money in an effort to move the media landscape more to the right. Hopefully, what Barry will do at CBS is not a shift to the right as much as a shift towards objectivity. But that is yet to be seen. All right. So that is Barry, editor-in-chief of CBS now. Congratulations to Barry Weiss. That is pretty exciting for her, for her team, and I think for CBS, and going to be really, really interesting for the rest of us to watch and to see what happens next. What happens next? All right. Let's see. All right. So, in dominating the news, I'd say the last couple of days, over the weekend and into today, has been the deployment of ICE into places like Portland, Oregon, and now into Chicago. We saw that massive raid last week on a apartment complex in Chicago where children were dragged out of bed, whole families dragged out. Just brutal tactics, brutal militant, really disgusting and anti-American tactics used by federal agencies in order to catch these dangerous illegal immigrants. Videos are constantly out about people just stopped in the middle of the street and dragged into vans. They're still using unmarked vans. They're still using ICE agents, not always in uniform, and with their faces covered up. These are authoritarian tactics by a federal agency that has now gained more power than any policing entity. Federal policing entity in my memory in the United States ever. I don't know the history well enough to say ever, but at least at least since I've been in the United States, the idea of roving groups of ICE agents walking around these cities and capturing people, dragging people. For violating immigration law, for the equivalent of speeding, victimless crime. These are not gang members. They got the gang members that they could. Now they're just capturing and dragging people off the streets. This is reminiscent of every authoritarian regime. This is they need stormtroopers. They need somebody who's willing to go into the streets of America after all, and arrest people based on the instructions of the higher ups in Washington D.C. It's a disgusting display of authoritarianism. Anyway, they're gaining a lot of resistance. They're getting resistance from local law enforcement. Who are not always willing to protect them, shield them from demonstrators. They're getting resistance from demonstrators and from just local population. You see this all the time where, you'll find video online of these ICE agents jumping on somebody and people just coming around and yelling at them to leave them alone and to go away. This is obviously offensive to the ICE agents, and they're unhappy, and they feel unprotected, and there's stories about, of course, their life being at harm. And there was that shooting, I think it was in Dallas, that shooting against them. And I'm sure some of it is organized, and some of it is clearly not organized because it's just, you can see that it's just random. Some of it's organized. Good. I mean, I'm glad somebody is organizing to oppose this barbarism. So I have no problem with it being organized. I think that is good. But generally, there are no burning buildings. Portland, Oregon, in spite of what Trump keeps saying, is not burning down. It was in 2020 when he didn't send troops, but it's not now. Nothing that crazy is going on. some ICE agents are being harassed while trying to do their disgusting job. There are worse things happening in the United States. Anyway, Trump would like to send troops into these cities in order to stop the demonstrations and in order to protect the ICE agents, so the ICE agents can keep doing the horrible things that they're doing. So he tried to call up the National Guard in Oregon and tried to call up the National Guard in Illinois. There's been resistance to that from the governors of Oregon and Illinois, and ultimately there's been resistance to that. And ultimately there's been resistance to it in the courts. It's gone to the courts, and federal judges have said, no, you don't have the authority to deploy National Guards here. Now, I am not a legal scholar. I do not have an opinion about whether this is within the scope of what a judge can decide or not. The same is true now in Chicago. Since they can't deploy the National Guard of Illinois, Trump wants to deploy Texas National Guard, bring in foreigners, right? Bring in Texan National Guard into Illinois to do the Trump administration's bidding. I assume that bidding involves, protecting ICE agents from the abuse of unarmed people who might stand in their way and yell at them, God forbid. And now that is going to go in front of a judge. The state of Illinois has sued for this. And now this is, of course, separate from the whole issue of deploying federal troops into these cities to fight crime. That's not the issue we're talking about right now. Right now, we're just talking about protecting ICE agents, and we're talking about ICE agents. ICE agents do not make our streets safer. So this is not like the Washington, D.C. deployment, which was about crime. And look, it's very easy to reduce crime. Bukele has the formula. You just arrest everybody. If you arrest everybody and put them in jail, crime drops. Crime drops dramatically. Not everybody, sorry. I'm exaggerating. If you arrest all males within, if you arrest all males from age 12, 16 to 30, crime will drop like 95%. I mean, ending crime is easy. The hard part is to do it while respecting freedom and liberty, while not arresting innocent people, while not putting in jail without due process. That's the tricky part. I mean, I've always claimed you want to end crime, just have a curfew on all men. Just have a curfew on all men from a certain time at night from, 6 p.m. to 7 a.m. every day. Men cannot go outside and crime will plummet. And that would be the solution. But that is, of course, a rights-violating mechanism. But it's easy. You want peace and quiet and crime-free. Authoritarianism is great. Under authoritarianism, there's very little crime. Very little crime. Yeah, well, you do the lockdowns. Instead of COVID, you can just say crime lockdowns. Let's do lockdowns. Yep, that'll solve it. And I think this time conservatives would love it because it's against crime. And it's in democratic cities. We don't want to do lockdowns in Republican cities. No, we don't do that, right? Partially because there are no such things as Republican cities. The question is, do we live in a free country or don't we? And to live in a freedom, these cities should have more police out there in the streets. More of these criminals should be in jail, and the keys should be thrown away. They should be locked up forever. We should get much tougher on sentencing, and we should put a lot more police in the street. Not defund the police, increase the police. But policing in America is a local issue. And the people who suffer from the lack of policing in Chicago are the residents of Chicago. Residents of Chicago have an opportunity to vote the mayor, the chief of police, or whatever out whenever they want. They go to the polls, vote them out, and replace them. And maybe if things go completely out of control, as they do some weekends in Chicago, maybe, having some National Guard there in order to stop gang warfare in the streets of Chicago makes sense. If there was a legal framework to do that, it's doable. It's not what they're being asked to do now. National Guard is being asked to come into the streets of Chicago in order to protect the thugs from ICE harassing hardworking but brown-skinned people. ICE is the problem right now. ICE is not the solution. ICE does not reduce crime. If anything, ICE likely increases crime by increasing people's frustration with the system they live under. But here's the real, I think what is becoming the real issue around all of this. This is, at the end of the day, not about ICE. It's not about the National Guard being sent in. This is about creating an environment in American cities that the government can start calling an insurrection. And if it calls it an insurrection, then they can use the Insurrection Act to now deploy troops en masse into American cities without asking for anybody's permission. The goal here is, and remember, Trump spent the weekend telling us that the real enemy that our troops should be fighting is his political opponents. It's the Democratic Party. The real goal here is to intimidate anybody who opposes Trump by placing troops or by having the power to place troops anywhere in America. I mean, this is straight out of the fascist playbook. Straight out of the fascist playbook. So Stephen Miller is constantly writing without, he's on Twitter all the time. Every tweet of his includes the terms insurrection. Here's one: legal insurrection. The president is the commander-in-chief of the armed forces, not an Oregon judge. And yet the armed forces, for which the president is commander-in-chief, have no responsibilities within the United States. That's outside the United States. And even there, his power is limited by Congress. He has no authority as commander-in-chief within the United States. He has no authority as commander-in-chief in Oregon. There is no violence in Oregon that justifies sending in National Guard. It's just an excuse. It's just creating the violence, creating the situations that will elicit the violence so that he can send in the troops. The goal here is to put troops into the streets. That's the purpose. Not to bring peace, but to intimidate. Stephen Miller goes on. And Stephen Miller, without any doubt, Stephen Miller is a fascist. He's not hiding it anymore. He doesn't pretend anymore. He is, and pretty much everything he said since the Charlie Kirk murder has suggested a fascist-like takeover of the American government. He continues, Portland and Oregon law enforcement, at the direction of local leaders, have refused to aid ICE officers facing relentless terrorist assaults and threats on life. Terrorist assaults? Where are those? There are more local law enforcement officers in Oregon than there are guns and badges in the FBI nationwide. Okay. Maybe Oregon is the responsibility of Oregon law enforcement. Maybe don't send FBI. They're not needed, not necessary. He continues, this is an organized terrorist attack on the federal government and its offices, and the deployment of troops is an absolute necessity to defend our personnel, our laws, our government, public order, and the republic itself. And of course, the response to this is, yeah, impeach all the judges. Get rid of all the judges. And you saw Bukele even from El Salvador, Bukele come in and say, yes, this is what I did. I got rid of all the judges. You can't get anything done if you keep getting stopped by judges. So just impeach them all, replace them all with people that support you, and then you can do whatever the hell you want. I think that's called authoritarianism. That's what he is. He's an authoritarian thug, and that's what he wants for America. Even Elon Musk has come out in support of impeaching all the judges, so basically Donald Trump could do whatever the hell he likes. And this all is a consequence of this judge, a Trump appointee, I might say, a Trump appointee, preventing the mobilization of National Guard, not just from Oregon, but from other states. So what's the solution? Impeach him. Get rid of him. Or Matt Walsh. Matt Walsh says, we have long reached the point where Trump needs to openly defy these judges. Some random federal judge has no authority to decide how and if troops are deployed. Yes, they do if it's in the United States. They're so evasive. They're so sneaky. He continues, she is not the commander-in-chief. Ignore her and deploy them. It's time for a showdown with these activist judges. This is who you've, this is the ideology of those in power right now. Stephen Miller, the one thing you haven't heard from Democrats in the midst of all this raving histrionics, telling their radical base to stop violently assaulting ICE agents. The doxing, murder threats, and violent attacks are soaring. Really? Just days ago, a sniper tried to assassinate multiple ICE agents, 2 vehicle rammings, attacks in one day. The list is endless. You can name 3 things. But instead of condemning the violence, they claim that domestic terrorism is provoked by the mere presence of federal officials adoring the moral frame and language of the paid insurrectionists. Anyway, the whole goal here is to create an environment where our opposition, the Democratic Party, anybody on the left, anybody who doesn't like what ICE does, they're terrorists. They're bad guys. They're evil. They must be shut down. Force must be used against them. And to hell with the judges. Here's Nayib Bukele. When we impeached our country's corrupt judges, we faced strong backlash from the so-called international community, including the Biden administration. We did it anyway, because it was the only way to save our country. The U.S., however, doesn't have to answer to anybody. Yeah, just do it. You don't have to answer to anybody. Maybe to your own people. Other than that, this is all an effort to make things worse, to intensify the conflict, to create a situation where there's burning buildings in Portland. They want that. They want street confrontation. They want to be able to use whatever legal tools that they have. They need an excuse. Just like every fascist needs an excuse to declare martial law, an emergency situation. We already have, 300 emergencies going on right now in the United States, according to executive orders, up the kazoo. Well, we need the ultimate emergency that requires putting troops into the streets. I mean, this is actually, put aside Trump, this is actually how fascism begins. Calls for the president to have unlimited power, free the president from any constraint by the court system. That's how it begins. And then troops into the streets. And this is exactly what people like Matt Walsh and certainly Miller are calling for. And by escalating like this, by calling these judges legal insurrectionists, by using this kind of incendiary language, are they inciting or suggesting, maybe not inciting directly, violence against these judges? If the left broadly was responsible for Charlie Kirk's death? Is the right, including Stephen Miller, responsible for the burning down of that judge's home in South Carolina? Luckily, nobody died in that burn, but it was very close that it jumped out of the second floor window. Somebody, it is assumed, set that house on fire. Is Stephen Miller, does he want the violence? I think he does. I think he wants violence. He doesn't care left-wing violence, right-wing violence. He just wants the violence because he knows that violence creates the circumstances by which you can take more and more and more power. Never let a crisis go to waste. And Stephen Miller is a student of that. He knows that well, and he has no intention to let that go to waste. So yes, it is true that the house in South Carolina, we don't yet know if that was a arson or not. We'll wait and see. We'll wait and see. But if it was, is somebody going to, anybody on the right take responsibility for it? Probably not. Probably not. Again, the judge that Stephen Miller called a legal insurrectionist was a Trump appointee. All right, this is the direction we're heading. This has been the direction for a long time. It's getting worse. The rhetoric is getting worse. The actions are getting worse. The constant appearance of Trump and Hegseth and everybody else in front of military and talking politics in front of the military, violating a long tradition of not politicizing the military, that is getting worse. It really is. It really is, bad stuff. Bad stuff. All right. So, we will see. We'll see what happens. So far, Trump has decided to abide by court decisions. I mean, mostly. They kind of skirt at the edges. They cheat a little bit on the immigration stuff. But mostly, they follow what the court has said. We'll see if that continues. We'll see what kind of challenges they pose. I think ultimately, this is why they want to ferment violence, because that'll give them the excuse ultimately to put troops into American cities, in spite of the courts. Or maybe under those circumstances, the courts will flip because they will have created an emergency. But we will see. We will see how it goes. All right. All right, so on news from Europe, this sounds like the news from every week. The French Prime Minister has resigned. He only was in office for less than a month. He had just put his government together. They haven't even gone into their offices and started, and he's already resigned. So France is with no government right now. This is, I think, the greatest government instability in France since World War II. France has now become like Italy used to be, where governments flip constantly on a regular basis. It's hard to tell what exactly Macron is going to do at this point. Appointing one more guy from the center is just going to create exactly the same situation where they're going to have to resign. If he goes to somebody on the right to form a government, that government might be able to stand, but I don't think Macron actually wants to do that. We will see. He could go to Jordan Bardella, which from the National Rally, which is Marie Le Pen's political party. But he has, Macron has shown no interest in actually doing that. He could call for another election. But it's not clear the result would be any different. The fact is that it's the result of the last time that he called the election, which was basically a stalemate between the right and the left, with the center being insignificant, which has brought about this current situation. Or he could do the ultimate, which is, and the ultimate would be, to resign and basically trigger an election for president, not just an election for parliament. So we will see. We will see exactly what happens. But it is looking bad for France. There seems to be no coherent strategy. France here don't appreciate the prior comment. Not sure, Dave, what you're getting at. Not sure what you're after. It's going to be interesting to watch France and to see, does indeed France go the way of, if you will, the far right or not? Are they going to be captured by the right? Is that going to happen? It was going to happen at some point anyway. What he said. Okay, not what I said. So that's in France. In Italy, Italy is also, not Italy. Whoops, I didn't want to say Italy. I want to say Japan. Japan has also faced a crisis. The ruling party basically has a minority position in both houses of parliament. The prime minister resigned as a consequence. And the ruling party has just nominated the new candidate for prime minister. And for the first time in Japanese history, the prime minister of Japan will be a woman. I know that must shock some of you who think Japan is the last bastion of chauvinism. But it does appear, it is the fact that Japan will be ruled by a woman. This woman is from the conservative wing of the Japanese ruling party. She is very much anti-immigration. She is pro-building up a strong Japanese military to stand up to the Chinese. She is not a supporter of free markets. She is not a supporter of capitalism, as no conservative is these days. That is not sexy. That is not popular. So just like the right in Europe, which is not free market, just like the right in America now, which is not free market, now the right in Japan is not free market. So it's going to be interesting to see what she does, how she governs, and what kind of prospects Japan has. Japan has, of course, faced economic challenges. For 30 plus years. It has struggled economically. It has stagnated to a large extent. And sadly, this new prime minister doesn't seem like they are going to make really any difference. They're going to double down on the existing economic policies and kick out a bunch of immigrants who are in Japan. But of course, part of economic growth in Japan going into the future is going to be really dependent on immigration, whether they like it or not. So they're going to have a really, really hard time paying for all those old age benefits without importing at least some workforce, given their benefits arrangements. All right, finally, there is a story published by The Economist a couple of days ago that is making the rounds on Twitter. People are citing it and quoting from it and reflecting on it, and it's a good article. So I wanted to mention this, and it's the title of the article is "How Europe Crushes Innovation." How Europe crushes innovation. And there are, of course, many, many ways in which Europe crushes innovation, and this article focuses on one important way, and it's particularly indicative, and that is on labor laws. Labor rules in Europe make it very, very difficult to fire people. They make it very, very difficult to restructure and to do mass firings in companies. An article makes the point that, I have made for, 30, 40 years now, that that yes, when you make it hard to fire people, you make it hard to hire people. And when you make it hard to fire people, you make it very, very hard for businesses to take risk. Because they can't pivot. They can't change. Once they've hired people, they're locked into that group of people. And if they want to invest in a new product, in a new area, in new innovation, and they're going to hire a bunch of people for that, but it might fail. In the US, if you're convinced that it's a good idea, you hire the people, you invest in the resource, you try to innovate, and when it fails, you fire everybody. And you shrink. But if you can't do that, and your idea is, well, if the venture fails, I'm stuck with all these people, then you just don't innovate. It has this really good cartoon on the front of an American strapped with like a rocket on his back, launching off into into the sky, and the European in a suit and tie with a briefcase with a massive ball, right, with the EU flag on it, shackled to its leg, making it impossible to him to go anywhere. Europe does not innovate. It does not have cutting-edge companies. It has missed out on much of the technology boom for the last 30 years and now has no prospects when it comes to AI. It is way left behind. And when you look at innovations where America is not very good at necessarily, think about electric cars, batteries, things like that, the Chinese have taken off and Europe is stuck. Europe is not innovating in anything. So I like the way this starts. There are two ways for Western companies, I'm reading for the article, to sack lots of people. The American one involves the boss inviting hundreds of unsuspecting employees on a Zoom call, offering them a few months' wages as severance and insincerely wishing them luck in their future endeavors. And to have their desks cleared by lunchtime. The European method is more circuitous. Companies wanting to enact mass layoffs typically start with consultations with unions, representatives of which sit on company boards in Germany. A social plan is drafted. Strikes inevitably ensue. Politicians get involved and badger the employer into firing fewer people than it had originally planned, or to pay for its soon-to-be ex-staff to be retained. The full cost of downsizing is only known once labor courts are called to rule on the matter years later. Meanwhile, the company in question often cannot hire more employees, lest it be made to hire those who were just let go. So if you fire people and you're going to go hire people, you have to hire the people you fired first. The article goes on to say, the European system may feel kinder. In fact, the cumbersome process of letting go workers comes with hidden costs. Not so hidden, actually. It is not just at the expense and hassle of occasionally firing employees weighs on firms' long-term profitability. Rather, the sheer difficulty of shredding staff en masse, a reality of corporate life, steers Europe's biggest companies away from making risky bets in innovative fields. In particular, investment in disruptive technologies, disruptive breakthrough. Think of the kind of whizzy products that mostly come out of Silicon Valley, from artificial intelligence models to driverless cars, require the ability of big companies to hire lots of staff, then later fire most of them if the project don't pan out. High restructuring costs in Europe make such investments unviable with a catastrophic knock-on impact on the continent's economy. It seems like Europe is slowly, reluctantly waking up to the fact that regulations actually have a price. That this is really, really, really going to be painful for them. Here's later down in the article. For decades, Europe did fine with its incremental but likely to pay off innovation model. Century-old firms show there's still money to be made in developing a slightly better tire or a faster train. But in recent years, the awards flowing to companies making bold bets have ballooned. Tech firms that pursue disruptive innovation have turned into trillion-dollar behemoths. None of them are in Europe. NVIDIA, an American chip maker, is worth more, listen to this, NVIDIA is worth more than the European Union's 20 biggest listed companies combined. Some of that may be a bubble whose popping may splatter American business, but lacking companies in such superstar sectors is one reason why output per hour worked by Europeans has slumped in comparison with America in recent decades, and why workers in America, relatively speaking, are rich, and in Europe, they're not. Paul Graham, I think, pointed out that in the cartoon, one of the things that is indicative, even though the article doesn't talk about it, is the fact that the American entrepreneur with the rockets on his back is wearing shorts and a T-shirt, basically. And that the European is wearing a suit and tie, and he says, this too is indicative of a different mentality. The bureaucrat, the European businessman is more of a bureaucrat. The American entrepreneur thinks outside the box, less interested in appearances, more interested in results. I think that's absolutely right. This is my whole point about dress codes, right? Yeah, maybe Europe is waking up. There be now a number of different papers, studies on how to make Europe more competitive that have basically urged Europe to become less regulated. We'll see if they take this seriously and if anything actually gets done. Hard to believe, but Europe is horrible. From that perspective, from other perspectives, the United States right now is horrible. It's very difficult to know where to go these days. The world is not in good shape. Not in good shape at all. All right, that is the news for Monday, October 6th. We will continue with the news for the rest of the week on a daily basis. We'll jump into your Super Chat questions in a minute. So just a reminder that you can ask questions on any topic you want using the Super Chat. You can also use stickers to support the show, as some of you already have. Thank you, Mary Eileen. Thank you, Mike Dial. And let's see who else has given a sticker. Thank you, Stephen Harper. Really appreciate it. But keep them coming. We're still way below our goals for the hour. So keep the questions coming and keep the stickers questions primarily. $20 questions would be greatly appreciated, so we can make a dent in the goal. I'll also mention we have 3 sponsors of the Yaron Brook Show. This is a show made possible through support from you guys and our sponsors. That's it. And it wouldn't happen without you. But feel free to support the show on Patreon or here again in the Super Chat or our 3 sponsors. The first is the Ayn Rand Institute. The Ayn Rand Institute runs an essay contest every year on Atlas Shrugged. For students all the way to grad students. The top prize for this for Atlas Shrugged essay contest is $25,000. You guys should definitely write an essay on Atlas Shrugged and try to get that prize. The deadline for submission is October 30th. All the conditions and what you have to do and who qualifies and how to submit and what question to answer in the essay, all of that information is available on aynrand.org/submission. Ayn.rand.org/start here. Aynrand.org/start here. Atlas Shrugged Essay Contest. Paul, thank you for the sticker. Really appreciate it. Hendershot Wealth is a sponsor of the show. Hendershot Wealth. That is, you can do hendershotwealth.com/YBS. Hendershot is with 2 T's, hendershotwealth, one word, .com/YBS. They are promoting products that can reduce and defer capital gains taxes significantly. If you have a large stock portfolio or you're about to sell your company and you're going to incur massive tax liabilities, talk to them. Talk to them, figure out if it makes sense for you to buy into one of the products that they have. You can find an interview with me and Robert Hendershot talking about this on YouTube, in the playlists under sponsors. Check out the interview. You'll find it interesting. Robert's a fascinating guy. And then you can decide if you want to check out the website and sign up and have a chat with somebody from the office. And finally, Alex Epstein. Alex is the world expert on anything to do with energy. Right now, energy is the biggest issue out there. I mean, the amount of energy that these AI facilities are going to require is just astronomical. I don't know that anybody really has a grip on it and where all this energy is going to come from. We're going to need to build massive numbers of natural gas plants, nuclear power plants, other plants, and we're going to have to do it very quickly because these things are going to come online soon. And if we don't build those extra plants, they're going to suck up all the electricity, and you and I, all of us, our electricity bills are going to go through the roof. Through the roof. When demand goes up and supply is capped, prices move. And the big AI companies can pay higher prices. Can you? So to find out more about what's going on, how it's being dealt with, what the solutions are, check out Alex, alexepstein.substack.com. He's the world expert on this stuff. And got a foot in the door in the Trump administration, so he knows what they're thinking. He knows what's going on over there. All right. Not a lot of questions, so this is going to go pretty quickly. But if you'd like to ask us a question, if you'd like to support the show, please jump in and do so. All right, Ryan. Ryan says, have you observed any prominent voices on the right calling out Tucker and Owen racist dog whistles and anti-Semitic rhetoric? Have you observed any prominent voices on the right calling out Tucker and Owen's racist dog whistles and anti-Semitic rhetoric? Shouldn't the Christian nationalists distance themselves from these lunatics? I mean, there are some. There are a few, but not many. I've seen Ted Cruz go after Tucker Carlson recently, and there are a few others, but not that much. And, you know, you assume that the Christian nationalists are not lunatics, but Christian nationalism is a lunatic ideology. It's a crazy anti-American ideology. And I think you would expect people, with that ideology to, you'd expect them to, some of them at least, to support Tucker and Owen. And if not, you'd expect many of them just to ignore them because they'd be afraid of alienating a lot of their supporters. Ultimately, the support for Christian nationalism comes, I think, it overlaps quite a bit with the kind of people who watch Tucker and watch Candace Owen. Christian nationalism as compared to what? As compared to Christians, not Jews, not atheists, not... So anti-Semitism is not that foreign to them. So no, you're not seeing massive voices out there condemning them. And partially because they realize just the sheer size of the audiences that both Tucker and Candace Owen have. And I don't think people fully appreciate, because it's easy to write them off as just nuts and crazy and evil and bad. But I don't think people appreciate how large their audiences are. And you can't just write it off given the size of the audiences. Millions of people listen to them. And we better take them a lot more seriously than we are. Because I watch their videos and go, this is just ridiculous. These people are not worth commenting on because they're so stupid and so crazy. Not just stupid, but crazy. And yet they are, because they have these massive audiences. John, thank you for the sticker. Really appreciate it. All right, Ryan, like the show, the algorithm demands your compliance. Yes, please like the show. Like it. Press the like button. It really, really helps the algorithm. Really helps with the algorithm. All right, Michael. Leftist attacks on MAGA won't work. It's going to take leadership from the right to chip away at MAGA. But there is no leadership on the right. There's nothing. Zilch is nada. Just no leadership on the right. And the people who tried have all failed. The Jonah Goldbergs of the world, they've all failed. So no leadership on the right. Ain't happening. Michael says, will you be optimistic if the Democrats sweep the House and Senate in 2026? Will that be the beginning of the end of the fascist phenomena? Well, I mean, it would sure help. It will be a clear indication of the American people that they don't accept Trump's agenda. It'll be a repudiation of that agenda. I don't know that it's going to happen. It's going to be very difficult for Democrats to capture the Senate. They might be able to capture the House, but there's no enthusiasm for Democrats among Americans. So the only way that happens is Americans are so fed up with Trump, they use this as a vote against him. I think that's fairly unlikely that it happens in big enough numbers to mean anything. But you know, if Democrats control their House, they can at least distract Trump. And again, I don't think they can control the Senate. It would be good if they could for a little while. But I don't think they can. So Republicans will still have the Senate, will still be able to pass their nominees, put them into place. Yeah, I think a massive win is very unlikely, partially because of how justifiably unpopular the Democrats are. Michael, in the early 1940s, Germany, few people saw the possibility of Hitler being defeated. How do you see Trump and MAGA unwinding or being defeated? Well, I mean, one plus is that Trump is old. And so much of the phenomena around Trump is a personality cult. So there's a good chance that he doesn't run in 2028. And therefore somebody else has to step in and let's say there's a number of MAGA candidates and they all fight each other and splinter the movement. And that weakens it significantly, and maybe a more reasonable candidate manages to sneak in spite of that. Right now, there are already a lot of infighting within MAGA. Look at Laura Loomer going after Marjorie Taylor Greene, and they're fighting constantly. So, yeah, I mean, it's going to be the one chance we have is that MAGA just splinters. It's the infighting. The infighting basically kills it. And I think that's probably the best chance we have. Tessa, did you mention that you will be doing a show about art in Florence? Thank you for all that you do. I did a members only show. I will do that. Not sure exactly when. Again, this COVID bed, knocking me out and placing me in bed has made any planning very, very difficult. It's also true that, as I think I told you, I'm traveling every week, every single week, and mainly on the weekends from now until Thanksgiving. So again, that is going to make it very difficult to do these additional shows, but I am going to try. Catherine says, what is your opinion on Austrian economics? Which scholars' work would you recommend? I'm a huge fan of Austrian economics. I think ultimately Austrian economics properly understood, is the right economics. It's about as true as economics has gotten. I like the original Austrians, primarily Mises, von Mises. I also like Karl Menger and von Bavinck. Of the more current Austrians, I really like Israel Kurzner. But there were a lot of them. There were a lot of economists out there influenced by Austrians and Austrian economists. There's a whole young generation out there, some of whom I've talked to on the show, like Magnus, who are quite good, and I would recommend. So I'm a huge fan of Austrian economics, except that they dabble into anarchism, which I think is really bad. But of course, Mises didn't. Andrew, no matter how much collectivist attempts to blind us, quote, the fragment about which they speak does not exist, only man exists, unquote. That's from Opal. Objectivism is the first true philosophy for man, the singular. Yes, it's the first true philosophy, first true philosophy for man, yeah. Michael, why haven't we seen any Trump or MAGA type figures in Europe? Are Europeans better educated about nationalism and fascism? They know not about nationalism. Educated about them, they know not to start down the path. I mean, what are you talking about? The original MAGA is in Hungary, Orban. Orban is the original MAGA. Putin, if you count Putin as Europe, Putin is, of course, a MAGA character out of central casting. You've got the guy in Slovakia. I forget his name right now, but the Slovakian prime minister is definitely a MAGA-like Trump type, pro-Putin, anti-West. And then you've got all these right-wing political movements in Germany and France, in Spain, in the Netherlands, that are in Scandinavia, that are gaining power. They haven't yet reached a point where they can run a government, but they're certainly gaining influence and gaining significance and gaining members. So Europe is, I mean, look at what's his name in the UK, Nigel Farage is very much a Trump-like, MAGA-like character. So no, quite the opposite. Europe is filled with them. Michael again, will you be interviewing Jason Rheins this fall? Really curious to hear his assessment of Trump so far. Yes, I'm sure I will be. I don't have anything planned. As I said earlier, this COVID has thrown me for a loop, so I haven't been very organized around this. But we will start interviewing in the weeks to come, and it might have to be delayed until I get back from all my travels. It might be only in late November, early December, but we will see. Wesley, thought on the Trump administration bailing out Argentina, $20 billion to help out with minor U.S. trading partner seems odd for the America First presidency. It's not odd. It's wrong. It's bad. It's bad for Milei that he needs a bailout. It's bad for the U.S. to provide it. But it's not odd at all. Anybody who sucks up to Trump, who's nice to Trump, is going to be rewarded. And this is true of business, this is true in politics, and this is true in international affairs. And Milei has been super friendly to Trump, so he's going to get a bailout. And look, Trump is Trump. It's not that Trump can identify the good guys. He had a phone call this morning with Lula, the really evil, really bad president of Brazil. And Trump came away from that phone call, oh, it was great, so friendly, really good conversation. We'll have more. We're going to do good things with Brazil and so on. I mean, the guy has no standards, no principles, and will sell up. But it's really, really bad that the U.S. is doing this. Trump is not America first. He's never been America first. He doesn't believe in America first. He's whatever he feels like being. He'll do whatever he feels like doing. Get away from the idea that there's some principle, some guidance as to what he does. There isn't. It's just whatever it feels like, whatever comes. Paul, to your health and watch out for long COVID. Thank you, Paul. I appreciate it. I don't know how you watch out for it. It either happens or it doesn't. Gail, Trump seems to be ramping up. His emotional rage seems to be getting him what he wants, ultimate power. Well, I don't know if he wants ultimate power. I think some of the people around him want that more than he does. He just wants to be able to go after the people he wants to be able to go after. He wants to have the military out there because it's macho. I think his needs are pretty simple. He's not an ambitious dictator. That's not who Trump is, and Trump himself is not a fascist. I think these other people are. He's just whatever. He's just nothing. But yeah, I think his rage. He's not completely stable. You can see that in the way he talks and what he says. He's not completely with us. He's 78 years old, and it's getting to him. And it's the people around him that scare me. Linda, would love to chat to you about Cordair Fine Art sponsoring YBS. Sounds good. We should chat. Fleshin, are you aware of any objectivist party or something similar? There's the capitalist party that's out there. Just search capitalist party, and they have a website and a platform and all of that. But there's no, I mean, not enough people would vote for you. There's nothing actionable because we have too little influence and too small of a voice. But check out the American Capitalist Party. Lucinda, any plans to have Jason Rheins on again anytime soon? Been watching his Kant lectures while working through excerpts from a textbook on Kant. Yes, as I said, I'm sure I'll have Jason on. Exactly when, I don't know, but I will have him on. Are you a fan of ragtime music? I mean, I like ragtime music. Would I call myself a fan? Probably not. I don't seek it out, but when I hear it, it's enjoyable. I enjoy it. I like it. I understand. What's Lena Peacock doing? A lecture on ragtime music or something like that? It was the music from The Sting. Robert Redford just died, so it reminded me of The Sting and the ragtime music in The Sting. That was good music. Robin, many see illegal immigrants as breaking the law, leading to some level of support for Trump and ICE. What efforts are you aware of to change the immigration process to allow more legal immigration? Well, there are none. Zero, zilch, quite the opposite. Legal immigration, they're making it harder. They've increased the price you have to pay for H-1B to $100,000. So they're trying to kill the H-1B program. And there's no movement, zero movement, to make other paths of legal immigration easier, better, or smoother. Legal immigration into the United States is an unmitigated nightmare right now. And this administration is making it worse, not better. Whether people resent illegal immigrants or not, legal immigration, there's no constituency for much more legal immigration. All right, that went fast, but that's good. I'm still trying to save my voice. Thank you, guys. Let's see. I will see you guys tomorrow at about the same time. I will be gone for the weekend. And then gone for the following weekend as well. So traveling, as I said, quite a bit in the weeks to come. November, I'm going to be doing a debate against the socialist in Colorado Springs, Colorado. So hopefully, if you live in the area, you'll come out and join that debate. There'll be more information about that on my website, YaronBrookShow.com. All right, guys, I will see you all tomorrow. Thank you. See you soon. Bye.